Hi, welcome to another podcast today. We're talking about the misconceptions of Dynamics CRM and the different pitfalls and things that you need to look out for. I'm joined again by Richard and Annie. Do you guys want to say
Hi
hi?
guys.
You can say hi, Annie? There you go, Annie. Excellent. So, Annie, we do a lot of something called CRM Doctor. So maybe it's just
Yes.
worth you explaining what CRM Doctor is, and then from there, could you explain like what happens in and around CRM Doctor and what the things you're seeing with our current clients?
Yeah, of course. As you guys know, in pre-sales, right? Pre-sales all about new product. CRM Doctor is about an existing CRM with an existing business who looking to optimize their systems. So my role primarily is to go in, lift the bonnets, as it were, see what's in there. The general rules of thumbs is I'll be able to give them recommendations and how to get the most out of the system. So like whether it be, have you thought about having automation to help you generate these documents that you're manually doing outside? Or it might be things like, have you actually added this field to like this particular type of fields? Because rather than just like an empty text box. So it's those kind of things that my role really kind of cover. Primarily a lot of private sector, but with
So when we do CRM Doctor, we do maybe, is it like a diagnostics and investigation?
That's
Are we
right.
looking at their processes, their functional processes and their technical? Yeah?
Yes, so it's a service we offer that we spend a day with the business and the super user to understand what type of license they have,
Okay.
what can they get with that license,
Okay.
and you know what can we do going forward to help them run their operations a little bit more efficient.
Excellent. So what are the different like kind of things that you're seeing with these clients when they're kind of coming to you from CRM Doctor? Like what are the kind of general things that are kind of causing a problem? And he's got a really big smile on her face now. 'Cause I'm sure there's some stories that she's got, right?
I've got a lot of stories with this one. It could vary, really. I've seen a customer who've built their own system before and not followed best practice, and it ended up being a little bit of
A bit of a mess is probably
Yes.
a nice way of putting it, yeah?
yeah. So, and then like, but hey, look, I haven't seen the worst.
Yeah.
It's never going to be the worst. We can always fix the problem, right? And we also just seen someone who's actually have a really bad relationship with their current partners
Okay.
and just looking for someone to be like, hey guys, do you know this has just been released on this wave? Like, have you thought about adding all of these in? So like the scale is huge
Yeah,
in
for
terms
sure.
of the uses of CRM, as it were, in the private sector. But like in the recent months, I've just been involved with a lot of customers who are a little bit lost, as it were. They come to us and be like, I've no idea
Yeah.
how to use this. I
Yeah.
want to love my system, but I need help. So
Yeah.
like that's where we come in. It's kind of more a bit of hand holding, but like in a way that it's a safe environment for them to be like ask the questions and feel like they can explore options.
Yeah, for sure. I think something a lot of clients don't realize is that the first thing, there's a big difference between using like a finance product like Business Central or for finance and operations versus CRM. It's a completely different product. Plus,
Yeah.
the other thing with CRM is as a product, the platform is quite wide. There's so much things you could do with that product. There's so many different ways you can go. You know, if you were speaking to different consultants, different organizations, there's different ways of, you know, achieving a client's goals. But I think a lot of things that I've found as well with some of the people I've spoken to is they think they can go and kind of do it very quickly. And
Yeah.
CRM is rapid in development, but you have to use the best practices. That's kind of why they're there,
Yeah.
and use the solution management and those pieces to kind of support those things from a technical perspective. So that was really good. I mean, from a public sector side, Rich, do you see a similar thing? Oh, you're in. There we go.
Go on.
So are you seeing a similar thing with clients not maybe following best practice or something maybe in that kind of vein of kind of thought, or is it you know?
Yeah, for sure. I'm just going to pick up on what you mentioned there about like rushing it versus rapid development.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that's actually key because we've got low code platforming.
Yeah.
We've got the ability just to go and buy licensing.
Yeah.
You know, a few years ago, it was, I just want to put something on a credit card, and you had this weird world of shadow IT that became a nightmare to manage.
course, yeah, for sure.
And I think people are in a rush to get things done. And that breeds a whole load of problems further down the line. So I'm guessing what you're seeing a lot of is those organizations that have rushed in rather than doing rapid development of the platform, having gone through a proper process. Yeah,
I think the rush comes from the fact that, you know, strategically, maybe their leaders are saying to them, hey, look, we need this now because we're not getting the right, you know, management information out. And that, again, without the management information, you know, organizations can't be strategic in how they kind of move their direction forward. And that's really important, particularly nowadays. You can't have an organization who doesn't know their strategic direction. So I think those are really quite key things,
Yeah, so you've got to have that fine balance. You've got to be able to move at pace. You've got to be able to change at pace as well, because we've got an ever-changing world. So these things need to be able to scale. They need to be able to turn on a dime almost.
Yeah, of course.
But if you don't design it right, if you do just rush in, and that's why I wanted to pick up on that word of like it's rush instead of rapid development platforming.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's what most organizations get wrong, if they get it wrong, whether that's public sector or private sector. And so, there's a lot of that. Obviously, in that world that I sit in public sector, it's difficult. More so with naming conventions than anything else, right? Is that knowing when to use customer insights, aka Dynamics marketing, right? Most public sector organizations do not see themselves as having even a marketing department. They don't do active marketing in a traditional sense. And so trying to evangelize and sell a marketing product, it just falls on deaf ears. And so with that loss or the mistranslated sort of terminology means that public sector have a harder sort of hurdle to overcome. And so, I see a lot of that going on. So just misinterpreted and not knowing what to do. A sales system. How many public sector organizations actively sell? Right? I mean, unless, of course, you're a higher education institution, if you're a university, just look at what's going on in the US at the moment and international students, because they're the most lucrative students.
Of course.
We don't want any of that happening in the UK because we want to have that diversification and such like. So, we just need to make sure that all of these organizations understand what can that technology do? And it's not a pigeonholed thing. It is a platform. It is broad, as you mentioned, Ravi. So, I think trying to get that message across. It might say sales on the tin, but it's actually what is that process from a point of first interaction through to maybe some revenue generation. Maybe there's a passing or an exchange of monies, but it might not be called sales in your world. And so I think that's where we need to educate, and we're here to obviously provide that education for others.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you're right. It's about kind of how it kind of bends together. You know, as you say, some organizations don't call sales, so they call it something different. But maybe the process has a similar kind of, you know, tone and a vein of kind of structure to it in that sense. Something else that I definitely feel, particularly working when I have, it's also having that people that you can leverage with the experience, having those consultants that know what best practice is, being able to say, hey, you know, you want this field. Why do you want to create a new one? Why don't we just, you know, use an out-of-the-box field and repurpose that? Because, again, I think a lot of people think because CRM is so configurable, you know, they'll just, we'll just add lots of fields on, and then they kind of bloat the system. I think by having that bloated system, you know, you don't actually gain the value. You actually kind of, you know, decrease that kind of revenue and kind of ROI of the system, which really kind of hinders you in the long run. And then when you get to that point where the system's maybe got quite large and you maybe have a kind of an exercise to kind of scale it back, you then ask the question, why did we add these 20 new fields? What were they for? We didn't even use them in the first place. Like, well...
Or drop down with other.
Yes.
Like, why we got other?
Yeah, exactly.
We're always going to choose other, especially in sales, right?
Exactly right, exactly. And I think that's the thing. It's about, as the system evolves, or as your business evolves, you've got to evolve the system with it. And I think that evolution really only comes from having certain experienced people available to you. I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, you shouldn't be inexperienced, because the inexperience will allow you to kind of have that passion to understand that product, but it's having that maybe inexperienced person or people kind of gathered and kind of directed in the right direction to give you that kind of, you know, broad kind of framework to kind of build.
Well, that's our whole like sort of strategy in our delivery model, right? Is iterative delivery, fail fast, do all of that to actually get it right over those sprints to then actually breed better success moving forward.
Exactly.
I think that really is the only way of delivering these modern platforms is being able to do an iterative build, get those individuals skilled up as quickly as possible, get them hands-on, we'll fail fast together, but with that guidance where you're getting the skills, you know what those pitfalls are, and hopefully, don't want to do you out of a job, Annie, but hopefully we'll see that those CRM doctors will actually become less of a pain point. It will be about actually it's more of a cultural piece, and coming to us as an organization, hopefully people will be like, actually I buy into these guys, so this is who I want to provide my support contract or my next phase of delivery. So that's the kind of thing, hopefully if we can get that right, and if we can provide that kind of guidance on our deliveries, then we're going to make that life better. So it's great to have this kind of insight from you to know what's happening at the front end of it. And then when I come in to do that evangelism, hopefully I'm setting the right kind of tone, not setting you up for a complete nightmare week ahead.
No worries. I think the other thing as well, like particularly working with Annie as well within pre-sales and with CRM Doctor, I think a lot of clients as well find that maybe over a period of time their partner has maybe not understood them much, or maybe they've transitioned into kind of maybe some managed services, and maybe their account manager hasn't kind of maybe given the TLC or the understanding that their business has evolved, their strategic direction's changed, and as we all know now in business, if you're not evolving your strategic direction and moving it in a direction to suit current climates, current social media trends, different digital disruptors that are out there, if you're not doing those things, your business ultimately stands still. And I think this is where like account managers and people need to kind of have those earlier conversations so that they kind of give that client the TLC that they need. It doesn't have to be a lot. Maybe even those kind of smaller pieces of TLC will help make them understand. But that's where kind of our CRM Doctor comes into play, where when we've got people our partners don't understand us anymore, or we feel we don't feel the same appreciation. Those are the things that kind of support and help us with how that kind of CRM Doctor piece kind of comes together. And for me, that's where I feel like where your CRM Doctor thing comes into its own is we understand in a slightly more wider context around, how the partner kind of experiences and be able to support our clients and do those things properly, right? Is that fair thing to say, Annie?
100%. I mean, like the whole service is about empowering people to do more, but in a safe space. So like, it's not about your knowledge or anything. It's about you feeling confident enough to ask the questions and think, actually, I want to explore that avenue. So 100% resonate what you've just said. I think it's more about, bringing people together, but in a control manner with the best practice.
I think our pre-sales team needs a bit of CRM Doctor going on. We're going to be coming to you for some of that guidance.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I'm too busy for you guys. I'm sorry.
Annie's always too busy. I think the other thing as well, I feel like when I'm looking at this is that when you're thinking of maybe changing, or you're thinking we need to change strategic direction with whatever partner or with CRM, you want to make sure you've picked the right kind of people to work with, and make sure that
you want to work with them.
Yeah,
too.
exactly. That's right. That's the thing. So it's making sure that those people have the passion for the technology and being able to see that passion kind of resonate with your organization and kind of across the board. And I think that's so important in how kind of organizations move between different partners and providers, and being able to kind of ensure that we can consolidate that kind of knowledge and kind of bring that together. So I think it's really, really important that we have that. So when I think of some of these kind of pitfalls and kind of consolidation pieces, it's about trying to make sure that you're following some of the best practices that Microsoft have in play, making sure you're following the right kind of things that are there, maybe leveraging more out of the box, because I think that's really important. I think a lot of clients think there's a belief that my process is very special, which it probably is, but there's also an element of why not use what's there rather than trying to rebuild it, which I think is really important. So that was really good. I really appreciate those kind of comments and feedbacks and thoughts. So thanks again for your time on this podcast. And great, and hopefully this has been useful. Thanks again.